Hi guys, and welcome back to another video in this week's Java tutorial. So in this video, like I promised, we are going to be working on arrays. So arrays are a new data type that we're learning. Right before we had learned about integers, strings, floats, doubles, things like that. Now we're going to be working on arrays. So in my opinion, arrays are my favorite because they can hold a lot of values. So essentially what an array is it's basically like a variable that can have multiple values, right? Cool. So basically, I'm using the word basically a lot, but we're going to be using string and integer arrays. So as you can see here, you kind of get the general idea. We have an array name called puppies. And in here, my example has different types of puppies. So you'll see how this one array is like a variable with multiple values. We have another one called primes, which just has a lot of primes, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and try to create one ourselves. The process of creating one is very, very easy. We just have to stick to the standard and remember it. So new Java create. Okay, so let's get rid of this. First thing we're going to do is we are going to create a string array. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to create an integer. I don't think I spelled that right, but it's okay. Array. Okay, so remember, like I said, for any data type that you do, the first thing that you do is you're going to set the data type. Now, it is a string array, but to symbolize that it's an array, we gotta put these brackets. Okay, weird, right? But that's the rule. Now, where you can find these brackets is right next to your P on your keyboard. Okay, so brackets, and then now we give the name. So since we're on the idea of puppies and animals in general, let's do cool animals. Okay, so these are going to be hopefully unheard of animals that you've maybe never heard of before. So then, instead of other languages where you use brackets for everything, we're going to be using curly braces and then a semicolon. So everything that you put in your array is going to go in these curly braces. So that's something that I think is a little bit weird in Java. Most other things we would stick with brackets for everything for our array, but this one we got to use brackets and curly braces. So arrays, we're obviously going to have different items, different things in it. So in this one, we're going to use strings. So we're going to have quotation marks. So we will have 3 items. Every individual thing is called an item. They're separated by a comma, and since we're creating a string array, they're going to be a string array. They're going to be in quotations. So the first one I can think of is blobfish. They are apparently the most ugliest fish in the world. Some people think they're cute. I have a neutral stance on that. Okay, so blobfish. I think I just dug my own grave. I don't even know some unique ones. Unique animals in the world. Let's go ahead and search that up really fast. Wow. Okay, pangolians. We are definitely doing that one. Pangolians. Okay, so that sounds like penguins and Mongolian. So Mongolian penguins, they sure don't look like Mongolian penguins. They don't look like penguins at all from the picture that we just saw. But, okay. Chinese giant salamander. That is a little bit scary. Let's go ahead and do it. Chinese giant salamander. All right. Okay, so this is our string array. So congrats, guys. We've created a string array. Now, we can't exactly access it. So if you notice, if we try to print out our array, cool animals, treat it just like you would for any other variable, because technically it is a variable. If you try to print it out, you'll notice that we get this. Not the most specific thing, right? Nobody can tell what's going on if we print that out. So scratch the idea of using a print line because it's not going to work. So as of now, our array is looking cool, but it doesn't do anything. We will work on that in the next video to print everything out. But hopefully, guys, we learned how to create a string array. We do string with the brackets, the name of our array, and then in our curly braces, we're going to use quotation marks for every single item and separate it with a comma. Pretty standard. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is an integer array. So this time, instead of string, we'll use int. So this makes sense, right? This is like creating a variable, except not. Okay, so int favorite numbers. Now, people always say they have a favorite number. I don't exactly know why, but I do have numbers that I tend to prefer. So this is exactly like creating an integer variable because we don't need to use quotation marks of any kind. Remember, if you're doing int, random int, you would just do 0 or something, and you don't need to put quotation marks around it. So go ahead. I like the number 3. 5 is nice too. 7 is good. 9. 10 is nice. 13 is good. Okay, so these are some cool numbers that I think are pretty pleasing. Okay, so these are our string arrays and integers arrays. You'll see after some observation period, they look pretty much the same, right? Except for this, these are contained of items made up of strings because it's a string array. And this one is made up of integers because it's an integer array. Okay, so this is how you create an array. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Okay, so the next step is to learn how to change our items or access our items. And we do this by using indexes. So this is a new topic, pretty easy to understand, we just forget sometimes. Indexes are the position of whatever you're looking for. So it's where something is. Now, they give it a number for this one, and you count. You'd say this is at position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, notice that when I was counting, I started with 0. And that's what indexes mean. Indexes are the positions. You basically count as normal, but you have to start from 0, okay? So that is something that really messes us up sometimes because we start counting from 1. But remember, indexes start counting from 0, and we are going to be using indexes. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's change this, okay? Let's change the Chinese giant salamander to a different cool animal. Now, what item is this? It would be, for index-wise, this blobfish would be 0, pangolins would be 1, and Chinese giant salamander would be 2. So while it is item number 3, it is index number 2. So yes, a little bit confusing, but hopefully we got it. So we'll say the name of the array, which is cool animals, and in our brackets, we'll give the index, and we'll set equal to a new value. Now let's go back to our tab with the cool animals. Venezuelan poodle moth. So Venezuela, I'm not going to give the country name, that's too long. I'll just say poodle moth. I didn't know those existed. So what's next? The moth poodle? So a dog with wings? Okay, so now we've changed cool animals. So cool animals, while we cannot see it now, I'm just telling you that the value of cool animals is no longer blobfish, pangolins, giant salamander. It is blobfish, pangolins, poodle moth. Okay, so we've changed it. To prove it, let's go ahead and access it. So we do that, we can use system.out.println. But instead of doing what we did before, we would do cool animals brackets 2. We want to see what is index number 2 in our cool animals array. And when you run your code, we are going to get poodle moth. So just to prove my point there, we've successfully changed it. If you were to copy this and print it over here, a line before you were to change the value, you would get 2 different answers. So the first time we get it, we would see that the value is Chinese giant salamander. But then we changed it, and now the value is poodle moth. So same thing applies here. We can say fave numbers and set the fourth index, I'm not quite sure what that is, and set it to 50. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what that is, but we can run our code. Nothing is going to happen differently. Then let's system.out.println, print the value of fave numbers 4, the index 4. Then go ahead and run your code again. My bad, I just messed Ripple it up. Let me reload the page. And let's go ahead and run the code. While we're waiting for this, basically we've learned how to create an array, we've learned how to access and change things in the array. Remember, changing is just like this, and access is just printing it out by doing pretty much the same thing as changing it. The last thing that we're going to do before we go for this video is learn how to find the length of our arrays. So you'll see here that now the fourth one is 50, which was not the coolest thing, but 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now the value of 10, instead it would be 4. Okay, so that makes sense. Now the next part that we're going to do is we are going to find the length of our array. How do we find the length of our array? Okay, so the length is pretty much like a method. However, it's not exactly how you would think it is, because we do not use parentheses, okay? That is very important. We do not use parentheses. This really got me in trouble when I was starting because I thought it was like a function. It's not a function, okay? That's something that you must be careful of. Well, it is a function, but you don't put parentheses behind it. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. Just remember not to put parentheses behind your length. And this is how we're going to do it. Okay, so we're going to do system.out.println, and we're going to say cool animals.length and semicolon. Now, some people are very inclined to do this, but this is incorrect. This is not going to give you the length. You just do length, and there we go. It's going to give you the length there. Now, let's also print out the length of our integer array. Fave numbers.length. Okay, and let's run our code and see what happens. So when we use the length, it's not going to give us anything related to indexes. It's just going to count how many items we have and print it back out. So in this case, we see 3 here because 1, 2, 3, we have 3 items, so that gives us 3. Now this next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have 6 items in the favorite numbers array. Okay, so not the most fun video, guys. I know, I'm sorry. But we had to get through the boring stuff for arrays. Next time in our video, we'll be working on how to print out every separate item in our array using 2 different methods for for loops and for each loops. Right, so we're going back to those loops again. Okay, so we learned how to create an array, access and change items in an array, and how to find the length of an array in this video. So congrats, guys, we're done with this part. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.